There you go. Welcome, everybody. Look at them all arriving. Must be a queue outside. How you doing? I recognize a few faces. Linda, how you doing? And everybody hear me? And looking forward to a nice talk tonight. So just I'm going to set the scene a little bit. And Kelly, she gave me the ability to share screen. I think she did she? Kelly?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, so I can share screen. Yeah, so, okay, so the talks are going really, really well. You know, last week we had an amazing thing with Tom Curran and myself. I've got MS, and Tom has a rich experience with MS through his life with Maria Fleming. And so, that topic MS is kind of parked there a little bit. But I also, one of the main reasons that people use medical cannabis with multiple sclerosis is because of spasticity. This is not a thing I suffer from personally. My main thing is nerve pain, and so ultimately chronic pain, which is the topic of tonight's talk. And I'm really, really excited because we got two brilliant guests tonight, and we're going to be sharing a little bit of knowledge and trying to inspire you. It's great to see such a crowd. You know, we got over 50 people here, and last time I felt we gained a few real campaigners who are ready to go and maybe develop ideas how we're going to turn this kind of little beginning into a proper campaign. So I want to go so what I'm going to share the screen and show you again is this. Okay, I got to find it, Stephen. It's kind of all right, Stephen. Where is your survey? Desktop must be here. Okay, here it is. So, can you all see my shared screen?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So, I wanted to give you a look at this because it kind of is defining how I'm organizing these talks. Here we go. It's down in here. Where's the talk? So I had this lined up. There you go, Stephen. Sorry, everybody. This is a classic. Okay, here we go. So I conducted a survey a little while ago, as I'm doing a course in UCD in the Innovation Academy, and so my hope is within that I've decided I'm trying to create a project which is the Irish Medical Cannabis Clinic, which is going to be a patient-led clinic, and really it's about creating, providing trying to empower patients, giving people the information, good information that they need to follow their own journey of self-medical advocacy. So it's pretty much a very broad demographic, 150 respondents. And they're all there, right through to 75-year-old and older, and so. But it was really built on this particular question here, which was tick the box if you or anyone you know suffer from these conditions. So the conditions were basically they're kind of the basis for my talks, and I hope to cover these over the next 4 weeks. So next time we have Kenny Tynan, who has, I'll tell you a little bit about Kenny, had some amazing news just yesterday. But here are the conditions I'm kind of focused on, which is, and it's multiple sclerosis, cancer, epilepsy, Alzheimer's, Crohn's disease, Parkinson's, chronic pain, that's what we're doing tonight, insomnia, depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder. And IBS was quite high reaction of people. I was a little bit surprised, but a lot of people suffering there. Arthritis, no mystery that lots of people are suffering in Ireland with arthritis. All of these have been the science is in, and all these conditions are absolutely clinically proven to be beneficially treated with medical cannabis. So you can see the percentages. So chronic pain, you had 40% of my little survey of 150 people, but 40% cited that they knew someone or they suffered themselves from chronic pain. So that's kind of the basis. To go on through, to very quick run through the rest of the things, if you're curious. Are you aware that these symptoms of all of these ailments have been clinically proven to be beneficially treatable with medical cannabis? So a lot of people said no, so they weren't aware. So that means that we need more education, is what it said to me. If you or a loved one could benefit from medical cannabis, would you recommend an evidence-based clinical service to them? Absolutely, everybody, 95% said yes to that, 99 in fact. Why am I stuck? Do you think that cannabis should be legalized to allow patients to access it more freely as a medicine? And again, 99, practically over 90% said they were absolutely up for that. Would you have confidence in a patient-led clinic to point you in the direction of the information and specialist best positioned to help you with your treatment? And a really encouraging amount of people were happy with that, 95% again. Would you be interested in a virtual appointment service with qualified? This is directly related to my clinic project. So would you be interested in a virtual appointment service with qualified doctors from other countries with vast experience in prescribing cannabis for real cases? And again, massive percentage, almost 90%. Again, people would be happy with that. Please tick the medical cannabis products or services. So that's just different products and services that people would be interested in. So that's the basis kind of for my talks, and kind of those 14, it's kind of 14, let's say, conditions that are right there that are being absolutely clinically proven again and again through surveys that they're to be gained by medical cannabis are there. So I once again want to plug what is my Bible, the Cannabis Pharmacy, which is it's a real kind of one-stop kind of little guide, coffee, what did they say? Coffee table top book that'll kind of, it goes through condition by condition, the treatments, and this is still a really new discovery where they're discovering the cannabis. There's so many cannabinoids that have very singular effects on different conditions, and that is you know, this is something we're still on a learning curve, very much so, and so we have to educate as we go, and that's kind of the goal. And the goal of these talks. So if everybody's happy, I'm very excited tonight and happy. I want to introduce two lovely ladies, two lovely legalized ladies, which is I don't know if that's the right term, but so these two ladies are vastly experienced in chronic pain, and both are license holders, no?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. So, and they both have experiences of the kind of system of finding your way to get a license. I, on the other hand, as a Maher Hospital patient, have been refused for 3 years. Maher Hospital has a policy of not supporting applications for, it doesn't matter, MS, but you fit all the kind of criteria of the medical, the MCAP license, but it's not enough. If you're a Maher Hospital patient, then you're basically, they don't support it. So that's me. So I'm the illegal, unlicensed ones, but now I have these two lovely ladies who are licensed up to the hilt, and who's going to share their stories a little bit, and we'll dig down into how they make medical cannabis work for them in terms of making their lives better, improving their lives. So, Miriam Haskins, I billed you before as the most experienced cannabis professional, I believe, in Ireland today. She's spent 2 years in Canada working right at the heart of the Canadian industry as it legalized, and she operated as a cannabis educator for some of the biggest firms out there, like Aurora and people like that. So very knowledgeable in the entire space of medical cannabis, I believe. I don't believe. Who's more knowledgeable in Ireland? So I'm billing you as that, Miriam.
Jesus Christ. I'd say the first. Yeah. I think the more I learn about cannabis, the more I figure out I know nothing about cannabis, you know.
Right.
And that was probably my biggest awakening when, you know, really getting stuck into the legal side of it, especially in Canada. Was kind of having that kind of jaw-dropping moment that, Jesus Christ, there is just so much to learn, you know, from, and I know we might get into it later, from, you know, the extraction processes all the way through to, you know, where the chenotypes are from and the strains and the effects and the minor cannabinoids and the terpenes and the symphony that happens with that. But as you mentioned, you know, we are all learning, and this is, you know, a journey that so many of us are on. And I would definitely say in Ireland, there is a lot of knowledgeable people and a lot of people that can't go public, you know, because they're making medicine for people.
Yep.
So it's kind of up to us who can go public and who can speak to come out. But it's definitely, you know, praising those people that are making the full extract cannabis oil, or as most people call it, Rick Simpson oil, for patients and helping people. I'm not able to go like myself and Alicia are and speak publicly and kind of try and fly the flag and email the Department of Health and all that goes with trying to change things in Ireland, you know. So I definitely pay homage to them people who are, you know, in my mind, really the true warriors of the plants, and who are putting in the hard work to help so many patients in Ireland that should be helped legally.
You're right.
Yeah.
And so in your case, what is your, if you mind sharing a little bit what your chronic pain story is? Is it?
Yeah, so like for me, I'm definitely on the opposite end of the spectrum. So insofar as, you know, cannabis it's not gonna, if I stop taking cannabis, I'm not gonna die, nothing like that. So it's not kind of life-saving, but definitely life-changing. You know, it's changed my life forever. So I was someone who suffered with migraines my whole life, since teenage years, but never really done enough about it. I think I was about 22. I went to a consultant, got all the scans done, and his thing was, well, you've chronic pain, so now we're into managing it. And back then he had said, whenever you feel a migraine coming on, take 2 Sulfidine. At that age, I had no idea what codeine was, just had never heard of it, I guess, living in little suburbia in Dublin, and just hadn't heard of what codeine was. You know, by the age of 30, everyone knows how that addiction goes, you know, and I was never able to solve the migraines. So it was always painful. And I have an underlying condition that meant that when I got sick, that when I went into crisis mode with migraines and I was getting sick, it meant I couldn't take my daily medication for the underlying condition. And that then was constantly putting me into A&E, or DDoc would have to come out and give me an injection. So that's really where the medical cannabis came into my life. So I initially went to Utah in 2013, basically to detox from all medication, including a really bad sulfidine addiction.
Wow.
And I'd kind of gone to just enjoy the sun. I'm a big mountain biker, so I said I'd go and mountain bike, detox there, get a bit of sun, try and kind of just get off all medication and see where I stood. And during that trip, I took a trip to Telluride, to actually a shroom festival, believe it or not. And during that time, I got introduced to medical cannabis. And I don't know how I would have come off sulfidine without medical cannabis. So when I hear this kind of comments of a gateway drug, for me, the only thing is a gateway drug with cannabis is taking people off opiates and taking people off codeine and all other, some other addictions as well, but especially that codeine addiction. It definitely helped me through. And once you have that life-changing experience, everything changes. So then I began to research. Then I began to see that I can use small amounts of oil to possibly get rid of my migraines and get rid of the headaches. So that's where it started going. So then I started consuming and using oils to decrease the amount of migraines I was getting. Never 100% got rid of it, but decreasing how many detox visits, how many A&E, how many times I was going down in my 30s to my general practitioner in tears, embarrassed, because here I am again, getting an injection like a child, being sick. And once that research starts, and once my life changed, I basically quit my job here in Ireland, left everything, moved to Vancouver in 2014. And at that stage, I had no interest in working in the industry. I just moved to have access to legal cannabis. I knew in Ireland at that stage, there just wasn't really the gateway for me to get it for migraines per se. Everything was kind of like the other extreme of, people might live or they're getting cancer treatment and not they're all important symptoms, but I just felt there was no kind of route for me to get a license. So spent time in Vancouver, got really well and healthy, and was naturally educating myself about cannabis, and then came back to Ireland thinking, oh my God, I'm cured, I'm a new woman, you know. And then when I came back, the migraine started coming back. And it was then that I started using black market cannabis, and decided that I needed to work in the industry, that this, for somebody that had such minor, in my head, such minor symptoms like a migraine that, you know, I was, at the time, I was just working normally in the IFSC, and I was getting verbal warnings and written warnings for being out sick. So in my mind, I was like, well, if it's changed my life for just, you know, the average person with migraines, who else life can it change for the conditions that you kind of listed, like IBS, Crohn's, all the hidden stuff, anxiety, restless legs, it goes on and on. So that was really like where my passion for cannabis came, is that I kind of wanted to go on this mission to try and educate people correctly in the correct use of cannabis, to try and get it to as many people as I could in the world. And like, that's kind of the core why I get up in the morning and why I say in cannabis, is I just want to get cannabis in the correct manner to as many people as I can. And I feel the way I was best placed to do that is through education. And that's really where the journey started. I was lucky enough to get a break in Ireland with an up and coming cannabis company that's absolutely flying now in the research field. And they gave me an opportunity to conduct education in Ireland. And from there, another opportunity came up to go back to Canada, and that's really where the intense education came. So when I went back to Canada, I got a break working for a large cannabis company, and was part of the education team, led the education for the retail rollout of cannabis, so the adult use, recreational use, which meant then that I had my kind of layer of medical education, then getting a real in-depth kind of connoisseur sommelier view of the cannabis plant and the strains and extraction methods, along with all the regulations that come with it, you know. So yeah, that's kind of like how the whole cannabis journey started, and how I got to kind of that end goal. And now being back in Ireland, being able to access cannabis to then decrease the migraines again, now that I'm here, has given me the opportunity, now that I have my license, to return to Ireland and set up home here and be able to live in the country, although we need access to more products. And I know we'll get into that. And if anyone heard Alicia speaking earlier, one of the big problems with the licensing here, so we don't have access to products, right? Like, I've gone from having hundreds of oils to choose from, you know, hundreds of different strains that will work for me, to now being like, okay, it's Bedrocan floss or Bedrocan indica, and that's all derived from Jack Air, which is an amazing strain, but, you know, we need variation. Everybody is an individual endocannabinoid system, so we need to be able to access different plants, you know. So,
well, I think we're so lucky to have you in Ireland, and I hope you stick around for a while. And because it's an inspiring story. First, your personal one in how you're conquering migraines. Which, how many people in Ireland have serious migraines? I mean, I know people that are just tortured with migraines, and so the idea, and they would not go down the avenue on their own. So that kind of education needs to be brought to people and introduced to people, and that's why we're here doing this. And so, can you just tell me a little bit about how, what's your preferred delivery? Let's say, how do you?
So when I get a migraine, like, that's, you know, as far as cannabis goes, that's end of story. I'm onto pharmaceutical medication then. So the way for medical purposes, I use a really high quality organic CBG oil that I was getting out of Whistler. Now it does have the THC through it as well, but a CBG I was using as an anti-inflammatory. For me, again, everybody is individual. And then I was using another oil in the evening, and then I was also using concentrates if I was having any stomach issues, because when you've had migraines your whole life, you've been using endless medication, and, you know, it damages your stomach as well. So if I had a stomach issue, whatever that is, be it nausea or something else, then my preferred method is going to be more on the combustion side. So I'm either going to vape, or I'm going to use kind of a dab rig, as somebody would know, for very clean. And that's what we're looking for, is cleanness, because, I mean, the stereotype of consuming a flower and, you know, yes, it's fun and great stuff like that. the majority of patients aren't using flour, because in general, flour at times can kind of make you sleepy, no matter how much it is. You know, if you're constantly using flour, some people can find that it can kind of just give you that kind of stereotypical zonk a little bit. And the ironic thing is, now being back in Ireland, I have no access to the vapes, right? So you're on flour.
Yeah.
It's mad, you know. So so they're mine. And I mean, that's what worked for me. But when we think of cannabis products, like it's everything, right? It's, you know, we had like I'm trying to think, it was like going to mass, like a wafer system you could put on your tongue. Like I always thought, like it's like going to mass. So it's developing products depending on the needs, right? Like it's, do you need it in a capsule of soft gel? Do you need it in a lolly? Do you need it in a vape? Do you need it in a cream? Like what, you know, there is unlimited ways that you can consume the cannabis, and that's depending on your intent. What are you using it for? So are you a cancer patient who's suffering with nausea? Probably you're going to use a vape for that immediate release, right? Yeah. But for me, with migraines, if I'm trying to decrease the amount of migraines I'm getting, then I'm using oil in the morning. So it just depends on the intent, right? And what you're using for.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so like my case is, you're just looking for a bit of immediacy at the end of the day. So that's why I vape, and you get a bit more immediacy there. And but it's THC has to be part of that, and that has to be part of mine. But like you correctly say, that every patient has an individual kind of needs. And like you said before correctly, is that so many of these conditions are hidden conditions. And so it's difficult for people to automatically recognize them as they meet them. So do you have any hopes? We have these talks are happening in conjunction with the students for sensible drug policy. And so the idea is that we're hoping to inspire these students, and maybe we can help create a movement to move forward.
I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
I'd love to be back. Yeah, I'd love to be. God, to be back in college now. If you have an interest in cannabis and you're in college now, like I nearly tried to go back to college this year because I was like, oh, I'll retrain. But when you think of the cannabis industry and what's coming, yes, there's the medical and there's the adult use, but within both lanes, there is everything and anything, right? There's government regulations, there's HR, there's accountancy, there's education, there's growing, there's trimming, there's propagation, there's digital marketing. Like anything you can think of is available within the industry, and that's why it's great you've organized the talk, Stephen, to raise that awareness that not only do we want to hold on to our own industry here in Ireland, that'd be really important, that we want Irish growers. I do not want to be sending my money in a bank transfer to Transvaal in Holland, as grateful as I am to have a license, who in turn basically is sending it to a farmer. And I know it's Bedrican and it's an amazing growing facility, but at the end of the day, it's a growing facility. So we need them growing facilities in Ireland. You know, we are the farmer capital of the world, but not only that, we have the best farmers in the world. I was reading up about our farmers, that we have the highest production of kilograms in the EU.
Yeah.
Like, you know.
And I've been in meeting a lot of them lately, because I've had a friend who has he's got a bit of land, as people do every now and again, and he's been interested in hemp. So I've been connecting a lot with the growers, and we have a young, they're very young, they're young farmers, they're kind of progressive thinking farmers, and they're ready to go, is the impression I keep getting, that there's a kind of there's an industry there ready, kind of waiting and chomping at the bit to get at it. So
yeah, absolutely. There's no reason we can't lead this.
Yeah, and look, so that's what I'm saying. That we're very grateful. We're going to be hanging on to you, Miriam. You know, because your knowledge will be of so much value. We have to find out how to utilize you as best we can. So I'd shoot over to Alicia, and Alicia has already been on radio this morning, or not this morning, lunchtime, and Alicia. I don't want to go through your story again, because I felt you've told it already somehow a couple of hours ago, but there's going to be a lot of people on this call who don't know it. Do you want to give us whatever you're comfortable with, basically?
Yeah, no bother. So I use cannabis for chronic pain as well. So my story started when I was 17 and I'm 36 now. So when I was 17, I went to hospital to have my tonsils removed. Supposedly a simple operation, but I had really bad complications. So I ended up having 3 operations in total on my throat. And I was in hospital for a couple of months with infections. So while I was in the hospital, I started bleeding from the bowel, and they transferred me to a different hospital. And while I was in the other hospital, I was in there also for a couple of months, I got toxic megacolon and my large intestine exploded. So I had emergency surgery to remove my large intestine, and I ended up with a colostomy bag on my stomach. So the plan was to have the bag removed, or not removed, reversed after 5 years. So in 2006, I went about having that surgery, but they found out during the tests that my rectum had become precancerous, and they couldn't hook the bag back up on the inside, so they had to remove my rectum. And after that surgery, I got MRSA. And that's when my chronic pain really started, because it took years for the wound to heal. And the only option that I had was painkillers, really. So the first time I ever saw a pain specialist was in 2012. And he found out that my coccyx bone was also broken. And he prescribed just prescription painkillers for me. It started with paracetamol, tramadol, then Palexia was introduced. Then in 2015, when I got sciatica, which is neuropathic pain, I couldn't walk at all. So they added in Lyrica, amitriptyline, pain patches, and every 3 to 4 months, I had to have surgical procedures on my back. So they'd inject it with steroids and stuff. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't, but that's just what I had to do at the time. So by 2018, then I was up to 30 opioids a day, and I wasn't functioning at all. All I was doing was taking the tablets, sleeping, waking up, taking the tablets, sleeping, and I had absolutely no quality of life. I was just lying on the couch, housebound for about 2 years. I couldn't even walk for 5 minutes. I'd have to turn around and go home. It was absolutely horrible. So I discovered cannabis for the first time then in 2018. I was in so much pain, and a friend of my husband said that he'd send me over a vape cartridge from America. So I never tried that before in my life. Like, I was so nervous, but he sent it over anyway. And from the very first time that I used the cannabis vape cartridge, it helped reduce the pain. I couldn't believe it. I was just sitting there. I was laughing. I was crying. I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And I said to my husband that night, I'm going to come off some of the medication. So I started coming off the medication slowly enough. And I'd agree with Miriam there as well. I wouldn't have been able to come off the medication without cannabis. It would have been absolutely impossible. Now, the side effects I had were still horrendous. The withdrawals that I went through, I wouldn't like anybody to go through it, but cannabis definitely helped. So when I had come off half of the medication, I approached my doctor about applying for the license for cannabis for me. And when he saw the improvement in how I was, he said straight away, oh my God, like yeah, of course. So at the same time, when he went to apply for the license, the pain consultant that I'd been seeing since 2012 left the HSE. So I didn't have a pain consultant. My doctor sent in the application to the Department of Health, and they wrote back and they said until I had a pain consultant that they wouldn't approve the license. So I had to go on the public waiting list then to see a pain consultant, and I didn't get to see him until January this year, actually. So while we were waiting to get the appointment for the new pain consultant, we decided to move to Spain because we knew that I'd be able to access cannabis here. Since I've been here, my license was approved in May, but we were already in lockdown here in March. And because of my underlying condition, I was told that I couldn't travel home. So that's where I am at the moment. I'm still in Spain. I'm getting cannabis from the cannabis clubs here. And it's much better than in Ireland at the moment.
Like myself, I guess we're somehow medical refugees, which is not something that people should be forced to do, you know, so it's sad. But at the end of the day, it's still, just to point out to everybody again, it's still illegal in Spain, but what you have is you have a right to grow. So everybody has a right to grow 4 plants. essentially, and then they have a very strong culture of associations where they're able to, like Barca Football Club is an actual association. Every member of the club is like a paid up socio member. So they have all that inherently in the culture here, and that allows the dispensaries, as they're called, to exist. And we can go quite civilized, in civilized manner. You in me here in Barcelona, and go to the shop and buy the strain and the type of cannabis that we need. So so Alicante you're in, is it?
Yeah, I'm in Alicante. Yeah.
So you have clubs there that offer you that possibility.
Yeah, I was actually very lucky during the lockdown. So the lockdown here started on the 13th of March, and it was supposed to be for 2 weeks, as it was everywhere. But the cannabis clubs closed on the 13th of March, and all I had was 6 grams to do me, and we ended up being shut for 3 months. So somebody, I think might be on the call as well, put me in touch with a medical cannabis clinic in Madrid. And I explained the situation, that I was stuck in Spain. I had the prescription in Ireland, and they actually took me on a discretionary basis as a patient, and they're still actually fulfilling my prescription for me every month if I want them to.
Very good.
Yeah.
This is another reality I believe you touched on today, is the costs of when you don't have the right to grow. The costs of on the medical access program are excessive, largely, no?
It's absolutely crazy. Yeah, like Kenny Tynan was paying €4,000 every 3 months. I was told mine would be about €2,000 every 3 months, and I just can't afford it. Like, there's no way I can move home. All my opioids were covered on the medical card, as were all my procedures, all pain patches, everything. And as soon as my prescription for cannabis came through from my doctor, they said it was no longer covered.
It's worth pointing out as well that I think, I don't know if I'm speaking for the three of us, Miriam, I don't know, but I'm uninsurable, and I have been uninsurable since 2015. So you don't have a choice, only be in the public system. So if you want to manage your health, it has to be in the public system, and we're reliant on these laws, and these laws are killing us in the inability to be able to treat our illnesses. And I think that right to grow is something that I would be really, really strong on.
I'd be the same, actually. I haven't been very successful at growing it here. As I told you, the last day I killed all my plants, but I have another 5 on the go there now. So hopefully, I changed the soil, I changed the water and everything. So hopefully this time I might get something.
Yeah, I've had a few things not work out, because the Barcelona water is very, very bad, and so you can lose a crop kind of easy as well. But the point is that there are people out there who would be willing to grow for us, you know.
Exactly.
So
that's what I would prefer.
If there's a right to grow, then people can grow for us. So it's not a question of, you know, that's what we're looking for, a broad stroke legal change that allows everybody to grow. Miriam there, for instance, would be a top grower for either of us if we required.
You may allegedly be an old grower, and we're in May. But I think, like, just speaking really quickly on, you know, getting the refunds. So, like, a big reason we want the medical access program is that once it's recognized, then of course we want it on the medical card. It should be an absolute given. But also for those who can't get private health insurance, that there's then they put in a plan, so similar to your dental plan. So a huge thing for me when I was living abroad, working for working in the Canadian space, is that part of my normal health insurance from Sun Life covered 80% of my cannabis.
There you go.
You know, so there needs to obviously there needs to be that, but it just shows that it starts opening things up, and that's why we need the access program to open up, because they have similar issues in Canada. You know, it's not that there's medical cannabis in Canada that people are getting refunds for. They're having the same issues because there's no DIN number or no HBRA number that we would have here. You know, so it's not recognized as a medicine per se, but they have an access, they have a program. So it's not licensed there either, you know, but there is ways around that, right? Like,
and Ireland is in a position that it has to try and find its own way. That's what I kind of feel.
Yeah.
One that suits suits our situations and recognize all these different situations. You have another concern, Alicia, I think, because of the nature of your condition and how your treatment with medical cannabis is that the strains offered, there's only 3, Miriam, you're going to help me out here. There's only 3 strains essentially offered on the medical cannabis program, isn't that correct? There's only 3 drugs.
Yeah, and there's oils as well. So there's flower and oil on Bedrocan.
On Bedrocan.
Yeah, on Bedrocan, yeah.
But I think I read something a while ago, Alicia, that they're all sativas, is it? And
that's what it is, yeah. So I firstly, if I had a choice, I'd like to take the oil, but because I don't have a large intestine, I can't actually take the oil. I can't absorb it, so I have to get the flower. The only 22% THC flower that they have is the sativa, and it just doesn't suit me. Like I know from trying here, I need an indica for the pain. The sativa makes my heart race a bit. It just doesn't suit me, and because of the sciatica in my leg, it can actually flare up the pain in my leg, which is kind of strange. So all the ones that I get here from the clinic are all indica, and they work perfectly, but I don't have that option at the moment at home. Just have the option to get the sativa one, the one that doesn't work for me.
They are the considerations, I guess, that makes things a little bit difficult to legislate for as well, because we are all individuals, and these conditions, while they're all treatable by the one plant, there are different reasons and strains that we need. I believe. You tell me, Miriam, is the right to grow, is that a first real step that needs to happen for us to have proper?
Well, I feel, I think one of the biggest steps is that, like, to have it recognised as a medicine under a medical access programme in Ireland. What that does then is then it mandates the government to ensure supply. And that's a big worry at the moment, right? Like, what's going to happen when COVID passes? Are we going to get back on flights? I absolutely won't be getting on a flight. Like, absolutely not. It's fine at the moment. It's getting delivered, and that's great. But financially, not a runner, and I'm not going over for that strain either. But once we have it recognised, then it mandates the government to provide access to what the doctor prescribes. So my GP actually prescribes different, she prescribes this, so the Bedrocan, but I also got prescribed 2 different oils. And that can't be got because that's not available. Like, it's not available in Bedrocan at the moment. So, it would mandate the government to ensure that there's ample supply for what our doctors are prescribing. So that's a big reason, to have that program as well, within it. And, everybody is so different. And it's one of the huge frustrations. Like, you heard Alicia saying that it kind of makes her, that particular cultivar makes her just doesn't have the best effect. That has the complete opposite effect for me. I actually get very zonked. So I can only use this particular cultivar in the evenings. Like, I can't work, I can't really focus. It's good for going for a walk and chilling out in the evenings. Whereas for Alicia, has the complete opposite effect, right? I'm ready for bed on Bedrocan floss.
There you go.
So, it just shows the effects.
Yeah, and some of the difficulties as well, in fairness.
Yeah.
Just for the rest of our viewers, yeah, so if anybody has any questions, then if you pop them in the chat, then we'll deal with them afterwards, because it's great to see people are getting involved here, but I can see the questions popping up down in the chat below.
And I think, like, a big thing for today, Stephen, I could just say to people as well, like, a big reason I got my license is that it wasn't just I turned up, like, I came home as an emergency in March, but a big reason I got granted my license is that from 2013, every time I spoke to my GP, I'm using cannabis. I want you to write down that I'm using cannabis. It's decreased my migraines by this amount. I would go see my consultant. I'm using cannabis. And it's just 6 years of knocking on the door. And it's constantly telling them, I'm living in Canada. And the only reason I'm in Canada is because I can't access it in Ireland. And I don't want to grow illegally because I want to be able to travel. So if I get arrested, I'm in trouble. So I can only urge, especially students, even if you're using CBD, if you're using CBD isolate, that's okay too. Tell your GP, because for this to be a movement, we need you guys to speak up and to be the ambassadors for cannabis, and to be the ambassadors for this plant, because this plant does have the potential to change Ireland and to change the world in a really positive way. And if it can come through the students, and if people can start speaking to their friends and their family in the correct manner and saying, yeah, look, I used a CBD isolate like my partner done, and I don't have restless legs anymore at night. Or if it's, you know, the extremes of me saying, yeah, I moved to Canada and it's changed my life. But, you know, it's okay if it has a small effect. You know, it's okay if you're using hemp and it's helping decrease anxiety. Brilliant. Tell somebody, you know, educate, speak up. It's nearly like we're looking for people to come out of the closet like it used to be back in the day. You know, there's absolutely nothing to be embarrassed about with this. I'm mortified that I got addicted to sulfidine. I think it upsets me to this day that I got addicted to codeine. Like, you know, and I'm just a normal average person working in an office, and I had detrimental effect on my life that nobody would know about, you know. So I can only urge the students listening in to, like, speak up, don't be embarrassed, because this plant is coming to Ireland and to Europe no matter what.
I mean, opioids is an epidemic. I mean, we have to recognize
absolutely.
that. They are being prescribed for every single thing. And I read recently that this COVID moment that we're all going through, that like big pharma, kind of the profits have gone through the roof with there's more opioids being prescribed all over the place, and it's like a bonanza for opioids. But this is the realities, and the fact that it's impossible to look at you two and kind of go, how can you be an addict? How can you be a codeine addict, Miriam? How can you be taking 30 pharmaceutical drugs a day, Alicia? I mean, it's just shocking. And then you can end all that by using cannabis can bring that to an end. I mean, it's damn.
And absolutely, and there's no, you hear the extremes used. There's no alliance to cannabis by any of us. If sulfidine and Xanax and whatever other pill cured my headaches without any side effects, brilliant. Like, there's no, like, it's not like, oh my God, it has to be cannabis. No, anything, whatever does it with the least side effects, that's the goal here. Like, how can we improve people's lives with the least side effects? Yes. And that's it. And life is short and life is precious. And if you look around at your family members or at yourself, like, every day you lose, what's the point? Last Saturday, I got a migraine attack all day in bed last Saturday. It's another day out of my life gone.
Yeah.
For what? For what? Like, yeah.
I've been reading a lot about pain memory, and like you have, and it's related to the treatment of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. That's all built on pain memory. So literally, that's pain creates its own memory within us, and that's something as well. That's having real success in cannabis is having real success in that area as well. It's
ranting.
It feels very, very wrong. I think we feel like we're always preaching to the choir in here, and that's something I really always wanted to avoid. That little survey I did, I tried to throw it as wide as I could, demographic, to my mother, I said, her, put that out to your bridge club, and to get the real. They're the voters, they're the voters, but so there's another wave of voters coming in these students for sensible drugs policy, and that's why I see has to be a real future in this. And so Alicia, do you feel that where are you at with, is your life now Alicante until when do you see an opening to go back, or do you want to go back? You're doing a PhD. Tell us about that.
I'm doing a PhD in the University of Limerick as well, and my topic is the regulation of cannabis for medical purposes in Ireland. So I started it 3 years ago. It's taken me a little bit longer than I thought, but I hope that it'll contribute in some way towards the movement. Something actually that you talked about last week was students for a sensible drug policy, and I don't believe they have one in the University of Limerick. So I think I'll actually speak to them about it.
Do you remember Roisin that was on the call last week?
Yes.
So Roisin is like the European head of students for sensible drug policy. So tomorrow morning I have a conversation with Roisin about organising, because all the other colleges. I mean, UCD is just one college, and so I really feel that there's a lot more. And like Tom was saying last week, he said that this kind of grew before. Tom has been around this kind of campaigning for so long, a couple of decades, you know. And so Thomas said he's seen it a couple of times, and it grew with Luke Ming Flanagan had a bill, then it goes away, then it grows again, then it goes, you know. So that's what really kind of, I feel that there's a momentum now. There's a kind of global atmosphere with the 1 in 3 Americans from the people from the US can now access legal cannabis. So these are all moves that's happening at the same time, and cannabis is becoming a big conversation. And I think Ireland has to put itself right in the middle of it. So I'm hoping that that's what we'll inspire with these talks. You know, is that our students our 50 who have all voted differently in this election. Call it the last election, but the election happened in February. Don't forget. And 50% of young voters all voted left, and they voted differently than the traditional bi-party kind of setup. So they are the future. They have the votes that's the Irish establishment has to see that this is we have a movement here that's happening. We got to step up to the mark. So, Alicia, you were saying in your future, how do you see your future? You're going to get out of Alicante?
Well, we were supposed to be already home by now. We thought we'd be at home months ago after I got the license. But at the moment, if I go home, I'm going to be buying it from the black market, because I emailed Stephen Donnelly and I told him about my situation here in Spain, about the products, you know, not being suitable, about not being reimbursed. And then I finally asked him, I said, if I did get the product, if he could, because I had the prescription at the time and they had started delivering it to people in Ireland from the Transvaal pharmacy because of COVID, I said, could they fulfill my prescription in the Transvaal, post it to my mom's address at home, so that, because she's actually named on my license, because I was in Spain, and so that it would be there, so that I would be able to move from Spain back to Ireland. My prescription would be sitting there, even though it's not the most suitable strain for me. And they said, absolutely not. So they said, you're in Spain and we're not going to deliver it until you're back in Ireland. And I was trying to argue, well, I'll have to buy it off the black market when I go back to Ireland. Like that's the reason I went to Spain in the first place, you know?
The black market, how's that working out? Miriam, you've had experience of the Irish black market in terms of, do you perceive that as a dangerous option, or how do you see that?
Yeah, like, I think unless you have, you know, the right connections into the right growers, for me anyway, like it was just lottery what I was going to get, right? Like no idea, called over to somebody, collected it, but no, I didn't have a grower at that time that could kind of provide me oil or anything like that. So, and it's also really dangerous because it's not regulated, right? Like, you know, what moisture content is it after you're drying? What did you grow in? Did you do a wet trim on the bud, or did you let the bud dry to save the terpenes? Like, you know, on and on and on. Like, you know, the questions you can ask, what lineage is it from? What are the minor terpenes in it? So the black market in Ireland, unless you have a really good contact as a grower, just isn't an option for people. And you're, you know, the person, again, unless you have a personal grower, the person you're buying your cannabis off in Ireland on the black market also has benzos, has, you know, whatever, crack cocaine, as we heard that, you know, that councillor last week compare cannabis to. So, you know, that's who you're dealing with, right? And I was also a bit nervous in that space as well. Like, just, you know, I'd be quite nervous buying or anything like that. So it's very difficult unless you have a grower. And I know there is some really good people helping people in Ireland, but for the vast majority, you know, they're stuck on the black market. And
they're all running a risk. You know, I mean, we're all, I'm criminalized in Ireland. I mean, I don't know who's going to tell me, I've never lacked for a bit of THC in my entire life in Ireland, it must be said. But it is a situation. It just, you just take it that, yeah, okay, I'm illegal. And am I such a criminal? I don't see it. So that's look, there are other arguments for another day. It's like you want to kind of focus on what we need. I have to,
and it's just so dangerous, you know. Like, you know, as Alicia was saying, like, you know, this particular strain, the effect that it has on her, you know. So if you go to your local dealer, you have no idea what effect it's going to have. Like, are you someone who suffers with anxiety? You better hope there's not certain terpenes and minor cannabinoids that don't send that right up to the roof, you know, and it increases your paranoia. Like, that might be for another discussion another day. But you know, that's my worry as well when I hear the stories and I read the stories in the newspapers. Like, I'm like, these kids have no idea. They have no education on what they're buying. Like, no education on cannabis at all in society. Like, do they know the difference between smoking it and eating it? Because they're two very different journeys. You know, you know. So.
And also in the treatments, I mean, eating sometimes will work better if we stick to the idea of the chronic pain thing, that sometimes eating, because you want a longer over the day, and so these are all the issues, and they can only. How do you see how are we going to? What's the best way out of this conundrum? Is it education, education, education?
Yeah, I would love to go in and speak about cannabis, but it is education. But I think the difficult thing we're in, and why we need the cannabis asset or the cannabis program to be set up, is that once that's set up, and once there's money to be made, then a lot of the education will come in for our doctors. You know, and I see that's why we need it. Once they open it up, then the investment can come in, right? Because even if you're Irish, like, what are you going to invest in at the moment? You can't grow commercially. So what are you going to go educate the doctors on? You know, like, so. Yeah.
There has to be a commercial part to of the equation for sure. Kaylee, will we have a look at some questions? Are there questions there that we can kind of?
There are a couple of questions. So Oliver has sent in a couple of questions first. Oliver, do you want me to read them out, or do you want to ask them physically?
I don't mind at all. Sure, I don't mind asking them there.
Brilliant. Thanks,
how's things?
Hi, Oliver.
I'll go up there, just back up to the questions now as you phrased them. So my first one was essentially that how have you found life on opioids versus how has your life changed since moving on to cannabis and coming off opioids? Side effects sort of on opioids versus side effects of cannabis.
Is that for Alicia or me or both of us?
That is for Miriam.
So I guess for me, like, well, yes, it's been life-changing. Like, when you're addicted to opiates, you wake up in the morning and the first thing that will make you feel normal is 2-sulfidine before work. So what codeine kind of done for me definitely caused, you know, a lot of, you know, when you're addicted to something and you're embarrassed, you're already hiding something in life. So that naturally kind of has that effect on the mind. You're already in a negative space. You're already hiding things from family. But what opiates does as well is that once you're on them a while, it doesn't get rid of your migraines or your headaches anymore. So you're just taking more and more and more and more. And they absolutely lead to depression, you know, and whether cannabis lifted that depression for me or whether not being in pain lifted the depression for me, I don't know. But it was like having a veil lifted over, kind of back over my head. On top of that as well, like, I've grown up playing a lot of sport. I went on scholarship to America, huge into mountain biking, whitewater kayaking. So it's meant that now I'm back kayaking a lot and I'm back mountain running, which I've never done. So it's been able to go back play sports as well, without being addicted to codeine, because it drains your energy and you're not able for it. And as Alicia speaks to, like, it just makes you tired, sleepy, ruins your cognitive mind. Yeah.
Well, I'm really happy you said all of those things, and it sounds like you're becoming very, very active. Cannabis has helped you achieve a very normal lifestyle, and that would bring me into my second question. My second question is for people, you know, using cannabis to achieve a sense of normality in their life. Do you consider it discrimination to attack someone for using medical marijuana, even without license? For instance, people in Ireland, but for when they do actually have a diagnosed long-term illness, such as epilepsy, depression, anxiety, bipolar disorder, so on and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pro adult use of cannabis for everybody. I wouldn't, absolutely. It's beyond insane that anybody is being judged for cannabis. All it is, all we're talking about now is chemicals, right? So even when people speak about CBD being non-psychoactive, well, actually it is psychoactive, or else you wouldn't take it, because you're getting that balancing act. The exact same way as a cup of coffee is psychoactive in the morning for me. You're breaking the brain barrier, right? The blood-brain barrier. So, you know, absolutely no judgment. Speak up and speak loudly out and demand it as your right. You know, it's your body, your choice. And I think that's what it's going to come back to.
Yeah, well, do you know what? I think Ireland is going that way. I think really the way we voted on pro-choice years ago, and just personal autonomy over one's body. Hopefully, more and more people will be able to recognise everyone's right to make the decision over their healthcare. I'm very interested in how you would view the Irish industry of cannabis, and I'm actually very worried as to what is going to happen one day. Would you hope to see the future of the industry in Ireland to be more like Spanish co-ops, putting together growers and buyers and sort of subsidizing prices? Or would you like to see it more like the Dutch high street sales?
I'll be honest, I don't have a huge experience with the Dutch or the Spanish one. I do appreciate connecting growers with patients, but I think also we need to look at kind of the bigger picture of who these patients are and the array of products that we need. So can the local grower provide me with a wafer that goes on my tongue because I can't swallow it, because I can't absorb it in another way? I don't know. So I would actually be more of a proponent of taking the best of the Canadian back here, the best of the Spanish, the best of the Dutch, and what suits Ireland. You know, like what's going to work here, you know, because if you look at Holland and you look at the legal space in Holland, Bedrocan grows, then the government buys all their cannabis, and then that's what we're doing. We're then buying it in the pharmacies. So we don't necessarily want Ireland to go down the route of one grower, government buys all their cannabis, or we're now stuck with another single strain per se, you know. So where I would love to see it, you know, I'd love to see all adult use, but really having the growers here in Ireland, you know, we need grow facilities in Ireland that will be focused both on the adult use market and on the medical, because on the medical market will allow them to develop different products.
Well, it sounds like a lot of advocacy is needed from experts that have experience such as yourself, and I just want to thank you for speaking to us this evening. I have just one final question, and this would be more of a personal one. In your experience meeting people managing their various different conditions, where did you ever come across somebody with epilepsy that was treating their epilepsy specifically with cannabis-based medications such as Epidiolex?
I didn't. No.
In the next
thank you.
Yeah.
The next talk we have Kenny, and Kenny has an adult epileptic situation, and so Kenny and we have huge news to announce with Kenny, who is also a cancer patient with a brain tumor in his head. And yesterday he had a scan, and he had a brilliant result from the scan. And that's with cannabis.
Awesome.
The tumor has been reducing. And while he has the cancer issue, he also has the issue of being epileptic. And so the one thing, and in all these conditions, it tends to be one thing exacerbates the other. And once you add anxiety into all of these conditions, nobody's going to get better from cancer if they're suffering from anxiety and having epileptic fits on top of everything. So what's happening with Kenny? Kenny's going to talk. He's our next talk, which would be very interesting to hear. But he's got that double insight, if you like, of cancer and epilepsy. We also have the following week. We have the talk with the girls with the epileptic kids, Vera Toomey and Deborah Downey, and there's another lady coming on with another lady added into that. So epilepsy is absolutely a critical thing, and yes, so you know, keep watching and sharing, and let's keep getting the word out on these things, because we have. This is where the value is. The value is in new people turning up and wanting to know. So another question there, Katie, we get through them. I'm going to keep things moving.
We have another question for Mark there. Mark, do you want me to read it out, or do you want to ask the girls yourself? He's just unmuting himself there. Give him a sec.
Mark went down.
Not sure where. Maybe we've lost Mark for a sec.
Yeah, it's to try and get him back. Isn't that what they do? Do on live line.
I think we'll give him a sec. We'll come back to him anyway. There's another question there as well that just there's no name attached to it. Because I have chronic neuropathic pain in my foot coming from my back. I've had 9 failed back surgeries. I'm currently having pulse radio frequency treatment to help control the pain. Now my health provider does not want to cover procedures, so I'm facing a lot of disabling pain. Do you think the cannabis would help? I've tried pharmacological treatment and nothing works.
So
Yeah.
Alicia, you think that?
Yeah, I answer that one.
Thanks, Alicia.
Yeah, that's kind of like I've had that kind of treatment as well. I've had radio frequency ablation and surgery every 3 months on my back. Since I started cannabis in 2018, I haven't had a single procedure. So I just use cannabis now, nothing else, and it works for my coccyx bone that's broken. It works for the nerve pain. So, and it's indica that I use. So if I was to recommend any strain, I know you don't really have the choice at the moment, but it sounds like the type of pain that I have, and it works fantastically for it.
I might add to that, just Kelly, first, because while I have MS, the MS conditions, let's say, that is treated by cannabis is usually for spasticity, but also for nerve pain. Nerve pain is my gig, and so that nerve pain is what I use cannabis for, and it absolutely sorts it out. I couldn't live without it, and it's only when I have like I don't have it's not completely debilitating. I can get on with my life and all the rest of it. But when if I want to get a good night's sleep and things like that, I do. And like Alicia is saying, indica is my go-to because sativa is more of a kind of upper, and I'm really looking for sleep. So again, for me, and in my journey with nerve pain, it's about we all talk about this sweet spot between CBD and THC, and really that's what I've kind of always been searching for. And I use an isolate. I will have very high level THC vapes and things, but and then I'll use an isolate, sometimes CBD, just to bring if I want to bring the edge off the psychoactivity. But that's what I do for my nerve pain specifically, and it absolutely works.
Right, thanks, Stephen. Mark's question is for Alicia. So he's wondering, what's the cost of a Spanish script? He's just looking to compare the UK and Irish charges.
So I get 20 grams for €200.
Slight difference.
Yeah.
Slight difference. Yeah. So €600 every 3 months as opposed to 2,000 every 3 months.
Okay.
It's not an increase you want.
No. No, it's crazy. And then if I just decide to go into the club, if I want a different strain or something, because I do swap strains often enough, it's about €6 or €7 per gram in the clubs here, which is it's for nothing.
Yeah,
that's brilliant. That's all the questions that we have in the chat so far, unless anyone wants. Linda, I see you have your hand up there. We're just going to unmute you there now, yeah?
Yeah, I was typing it up there. It's too long. I talk too much. Hi, girls. It's lovely to see you. I would like to know, Hans Stephen, what you would suggest for somebody in my position where my GP doesn't support illegal drug use. My rheumatology department have absolutely shot me down as soon as I mentioned medicinal cannabis. They absolutely do not support medicinal licenses for cannabis. And I know as part of the individual license application, you need to be known to your GP or your consultant. It's part of the criteria. When you're being shut down at the very first hurdle, what would you suggest would be the next thing a person could do, not just me, but anybody who wants to go down this route?
Okay, first of all, you know the way that you said there, Linda, that the consultant needs to be known to you. So the consultant that actually signed off on my license, it was the first time I've ever seen him.
Okay.
So I wasn't known to him. And I know when you read the guidelines for the license application, it does say that you have to have like a relationship with the doctor and stuff. Yeah. So that's what I had to do. I just had to find a different doctor. But there is nothing stopping me from going to another doctor. I know like it's going to be hard to find another doctor as well that's going to prescribe it, you know. But yeah, that's the only thing I can.
Just keep trying, just keep knocking on doors until you find somebody who will support your application.
Yeah, because you don't need to have a relationship with them.
Yeah.
We have a situation where the GP is able to is that a.
You need a consultant to endorse it, though.
You need a consultant to endorse the GP. Okay, so it's GP person. Yeah, so this is the problem.
Any consultant.
Yeah.
So I could find somebody who consults on something different altogether, as long as they'll sign it off for me and send the form in.
Yeah, and that's the kind of road that we're heading on. That's what it feels like, you know. I mean, it's like there's an entire hospital. That's what I'm saying. I'm Maher, so the entire hospital of the Maher, and there's a lot more conditions. I mean, there is MS. It's only one. I mean, I imagine there's quite a few chronic pain and many conditions in the Maher hospital, big Irish hospital, and it's a straight policy. Yeah, we're not supporting. So no consultant in the Maher system will support. So it's shocking, to be honest. And
it's right. Like, look at me. I'm a middle-aged woman. Like, you know, I find it very hard to go to any street dealer and them not to run a mile from me. You know, I'm letting some guy in the street manage my medical condition on my behalf.
DS.
You know, exactly. Well, but you know, I have friends who are GP hopping for Valium, and it's not a problem. You know, it's just the system's just crazy. But I don't need to be telling you guys that, because you already know. I'll let somebody else have a go now.
Yeah, but
Thanks very much, Linda.
I'm very hopeful that Linda's an experienced campaigner on repeal and things like that, and I'm hoping Linda. I'm going to talk Roshi tomorrow, but I'm hoping that we can kind of bring the energy of these different people together, and we can get a proper campaign going in the new year. You know, so we'll continue with these kinds of talks. And every week, if we add an extra few people that are kind of inspired to kind of be part of this, because it's a human right. It's a human right, and I think that's, you know, it's a plant that we can, at its most basic level, if we have the right to grow, then it'll go a long way to solving a lot of people's issues. But so those are where we got to go. We have a bunch more in the chat there now. Is there anybody in?
Yeah, so we've one for both you girls. So the first one is for Alicia. Is there not one license holder that got approved with their GP overseeing their care, and they have a script for fresh bud? His mom spoke at a conference in UL.
Yeah, that was the conference actually that I organised in UL. That is Pamela Fowler. Her GP primarily is the first name on the license, but they still have it approved by the consultant. The consultant has actually backed their application as well. So you can have either the consultant apply for it or the GP. It's just you actually need both. So even if she said that the GP prescribes it, because it's my GP that prescribes it again as well, ultimately you do need a consultant to back up your application.
Yeah,
that's great. We have the next question for you there, Miriam, as well. So Jen is asking, what strain do you find best for migraines?
So I use a strain out of Whistler called, it's a CBG Shiskaberry. So I use it in oil form. So a high CBG, so CBG is like the mother molecule. So it starts with CBG, and then we get CBGA, and then we get either THC or CBD, depending on the genotype, depending on the cultivar. So I use a high CBG, and then I use a strain called Bubba Kush. And what the Bubba Kush has helped me do, it's basically cut out, I didn't take Xanax, but I took Xanax when I got migraines. But basically what Bubba Kush helped me to do is the equivalent of taking a Xanax. It helped me sleep at night. So that in turn helps with the migraine. So yeah, Shiskaberry, Bubba Kush, Chocolope, and a couple of others. But really for the migraines, it was the high CBG and then the Bubba Kush, which was helping me sleep at night, which in turn was helping decrease the migraines.
Thanks for that, Miriam.
Yep.
Anything else there, Katie?
I'm just going to scan through the video or the windows for a sec to see if anyone else has a question, but I think that's it so far, unless anyone else has something they want to pop in. Sean, I see you're looking to say something there.
How's it going, everybody? I'm here with John Murray here, just listening in. I love hearing your words. Just let people know who I am. I'm sort of in the background all the time, doing a bit of the old propaganda online, faceless things being put up. But it's all positive stuff. That's what I do with my sort of online work. But I have a question to ask, guys. So basically, you're a refugee of weed. Anybody in Alicante, anybody in Vancouver, you're refugees. You're weed refugees. You had to get out of Ireland because they don't really have the services, or what they're offering is bullshit. Like the whole idea going over to Holland, like everybody going to one, the pharmacists must think the fucking country's mental. Like, all these people are coming in from Ireland for my weed. What's going on? Like, so, I mean, it's just hilarious in one sense. And I don't want to mock it because I'm into comedy and stuff, but, and cannabis and me have a very long-term relation with it. As I say, I'm still in the cannabis closet, blowing smoke rings out the side of it. So, if my mother actually really knew, she'd fucking faint. So, what I'm asking is that how? I mean, I keep coming up with ideas of how we can rewrite the laws. I mean, is that what they're looking for? Like a whole new rewritten law? This body will look after this area, and when it comes down to, like, when I read about the farmers going for let's grow the cannabis crop for Ireland, the CBD crop, and I'm like, well, lads, it takes a little bit of work there to get the right seeds for the right for their country and stuff, and then the weather dependent and
why would it not be? I mean, why would the government turn to places like Christiana, right? Like, I mean, with this government, all you see, I'm sorry, I'm an American, sort of, right? I've been here for like 5 years, but I see the same problems that took hold of the state of California and made it possible for a couple of companies to control effectively. Not ultimately, it became about more than just the money. It became about phenomes and about strains themselves, and so it affected what we had access to. And I think here the same thing's going to happen if everything is outsourced. Until people are empowered here to have a relationship directly with the plant, right? I mean, like, it seems absurd, and it seems like a small enough country. Like, I'm just curious why laws have been passed. Nothing's actually been put in place that allows anyone to take advantage of those laws. Haven't changed. Not really. Not unless they push and push and push.
Is it so the stuff like when I'm hearing you got to get a consultant, then the consultant has to go to the doctor. Consultant. So you have this sort of like, and the consultants, you don't know so you're all tiptoeing. We're tiptoeing around the system because they're sort of all passing the buck. I keep getting
they're all making the buck too.
Well, my understanding of the government as the way it's run, they control the cannabis market. They create what you should be able to grow and what you're not allowed legal to grow, and shifting up that 0.2%, maybe to 0.4% or 0.5 would allow the farmers to bring in new seeds that their government recommend, because you actually only have to grow government recommended seeds. You know what I mean? It's like, and they're all growing the specific phenola for the CBD, as well as it grows quickly and it provides enough, if the sun is good. I don't know if you know about the crops this year. The cannabis crops outdoor.
It was dry.
In the northern part, Midlands, it was very, very wet and very not sunny. So it
was really dry early on.
But then, it was great early on, but we had a rubbish summer.
It just ruined
but Wicklow and Wexford and Waterford, they're the best places to grow it, because they get the about double the sunlight in the country.
John, we're going to have another talk in the future about growing.
Okay, sorry about that. Just hijacked it there for a bit. Sorry.
Yeah, you're gone off topic, man. And so let's. We got the idea of the talks here is we're going specifically through them. And next week we do cancer with Kenny, and we talk about the realities of patients who, within our situation as it is, the difficulties of the situation. It is what it is, to use that phrase that everybody's sick of. But so, Sean, join the conversation, but join us building this thing to build a campaign, But in terms of these talks, we're kind of going to go through them subject by subject. So we're running out of time, man, and let's. I want to kind of stick to things, yeah. And
thank you.
So I'm not speaking over. I know Sean. So, but I want to. We have all our questions out of the way, Kaylee?
We just have one more. Kieran wants to know how long before one of you is going to be on Nationwide.
How long before?
That's the dream.
Yeah.
The dream is a not-for-profit medical cannabis grow. That's my dream anyway.
Yeah, I'd say the same. Yeah.
Yeah. Alicia's going to do all the government relations and all the regs, and then
Yeah.
sorted.
Yeah.
What do you think about? I listened to. There's a very, the Cannabis Review podcast. They had it. The latest one they had was kind of interesting on the New Zealand referendum, which didn't pass, and but it was. I'll leave a link. I'll put up a link on the Facebook and things like that. But it's a very interesting podcast because it's about they prepared their bill, and I'm sure that bill is there. He said they spent a lot of time preparing that bill for a referendum, and but it was, and this goes back to people like Linda, the experience of the repeal, and it's just such an easy thing to attack. In terms of when you're building a campaign, it's very vulnerable to kind of right-wing attacks and the same kind of lobbying groups that are always against it, like the guy down in Cork who comes out with the mad statement, and that's all it takes for a contrary argument to all the absolute evidence that we're talking about here that patients need this thing for, and so we need to kind of galvanize somehow. A campaign has to galvanize itself against that. Do you think, Miriam, the experience of the Canadian thing, do you think that referendum, is that a way to go, or how do you think it should? Alicia,
I'd nearly agree with Tom last week when he says like there should be a law passed that there doesn't have to be a referendum. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. This is completely off the wall that we don't have a choice of what chemicals we're putting in our body. Yeah. Like, I don't think we should really budge on that per se. Like, a referendum would be great, but you can only imagine what's going to come out in the woodwork on the referendum. Like, it's going to be insane. The misinformation that would be spread. We need it rescheduled. They have to reschedule it.
But that's what happened in New Zealand. Effectively, that they had all the pro lobby had all their their ducks in a row and everything done on it, but then it was just too easy to be dismantled. And the only argument, the usual teenage kind of psychosis kind of argument, when really the numbers coming out of Canada regarding teens is that it's greatly reduced since legalization. But this is the facts that we need to build within this campaign, and for all the students for sensible drug policy. The facts are that the reason that New Zealand referendum was lost was because of this argument that wasn't real in fact, wasn't borne out in facts, that numbers had reduced in Canada. So Alicia, we're going to have to take your lead with all the regulations, as Miriam said.
Yeah, we don't need a referendum anyway. With regards to the Medical Cannabis Access Programme, the regulations are there, and if the only barrier that they have at the moment that they keep referring back to is the price, then they should just amend the Misuse of Drugs Act and legalise it fully. And in the meantime, we'll be able to sort it out ourselves, be able to get it to people that need it.
There's Kenny Tynan. Kenny Tynan is saying he's going back into the black market.
Yeah, the only people that are benefiting from cannabis in Ireland at the moment are people that are selling it on the black market. Yeah.
Which will continue. Which is how there seems to be a willingness in the Irish establishment to kind of to let that perpetuate. In terms of what is it? We like the love hate series. So we have to keep on perpetuating that they need to be that needs to be there or something. It is ridiculous, Ireland, and so I think we'll leave it there, ladies. And I want to thank everybody for coming along, and I hope you enjoyed yourselves. You can put up a reaction, thumbs up for our fantastic guests, and I hope you spread the word. Next week, like I said, is going to be Kenny. And we're going to talk cancer and epilepsy because he has that double whammy. And Kenny also has an interesting thing where he's been, getting off opioids has been a massive thing for him. And so that'll be a very enlightening talk. And I hope you can all come back, enjoy it, and keep spreading the word. And that's all we can do. So I think we'll leave it at there, guys. We're kind of at that time. What time is it?
Yeah, and well done you for organising. Good on you.
Yeah, look, I really feel that this is about, there's an awful lot of students in Ireland, and those students all have a vote. I don't know how we allowed that to happen, but they do, you know. But you know, it's like, it's real, and for them, I mean, I was caught with a blim, as we called it back in the day, of hash in the very first trip to Tip. I don't know when that was. Or when was that? That's like 35 years ago. There's not many students, who were at that gig. But I was one of 27 people who were caught with hash. I was 17. I was just gone 18. So I was able to bring me and put me in court, and I had to pay a €250 courthouse poor box donation. And how long ago is that? You'd have to Google. I can't tell you off the top of my head. But the reality is, for young people, for all these students, I'm old guy now, yeah. But when I went traveling around the world, and I've traveled to a lot of countries, and it can come back to bite you at any moment. And that's that blim of hash. When in Brazil, I had to you know, get a card, like a carteira de trabalho, but I had to get an official card in Brazil, and then you had to get a statement from your Gardaí that you weren't a complete criminal. And but that's when I have to ring the Gardaí in Granard and Longford and kind of say, and they're going, oh, there was that thing, and I'm going, what thing? But that's the reality. And so it could come back to bite you 35 years later. You know, your tiny little conviction for less than I don't know how many grams of hash there was there. And so these are real issues that we haven't been really discussing in these talks so far, is the criminalization of people. And that is a real fundamental issue. And we need to get this fixed. We can't be criminalizing all these students that are in this students' union. And all of those, you're all, you know, you can go out tomorrow night and get caught because of the COVID party raid or something like that, and you get caught with your gram of hash or something like that. Then you have to that might come back to bite a long time ago. So we have so many reasons to get busy and get fighting this. So that's I'll leave it at that, guys.
Thanks so much, Stephen.
Thank you so much for taking part, Alicia and Miriam, and thank you so much for everybody turning up. Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks a million, everyone. See you next week.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, see you next week.
Bye.